Okay, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. Dry farming in the world of wine. It's a practice as old as winemaking itself, but one that's suddenly incredibly relevant again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, before modern plumbing and irrigation, this is just how you grew grapes, right?
Okay.
Now it's having this powerful resurgence for some very modern reasons.
Exactly. We've pulled together a stack of material for this deep dive articles, research, some historical context. Our mission really is to cut through the noise and give you the absolute essential insights.
Hmm.
What dry farming is, its deep history, why growers are choosing it now, despite the challenges, and what it means for the bottle of wine you might eventually enjoy.
Yeah.
Think of this as your fast track to understanding why this ancient method is shaping the future of wine.
Let's unpack it. Sounds good.
So let's start in the beginning. Strip it down. What exactly is dry farming in viticulture? Forget the romantic notions for a second, just the precise definition.
Fundamentally, it means cultivating grapevines without any form of supplemental or artificial irrigation.
None at all.
Zero. The vines rely solely on the water they can access from natural rainfall and, crucially, the moisture already stored in the soil.
Okay, so no hoses, no drips, just whatever the sky provides and the ground holds on to.
Precisely. But it's much more than just not irrigating. It's a holistic approach, really.
Yeah.
A whole set of principles designed to make that reliance on natural water possible and, well, successful.
Ah, okay, so it's a system, not just an absence. Tell us about those principles then.
Right. First, it's about picking your spot, the terroir. You need regions with suitable rainfall patterns, even if it's seasonal, that's fine. But importantly, soils that are good at retaining moisture.
Like what kind of soils?
Think clay or certain types of limestone. They can act like a sponge, holding water for longer.
So the soil quality is paramount for storing that natural rainfall.
Absolutely key. Then comes choosing the right grape varieties. You need grapes that are naturally drought resistant or, known for developing deep root systems.
Makes sense.
Intelligent soil management is also critical. You're actively working to encourage water infiltration when it does rain and maximize retention.
How do you do that?
This involves things like building up organic matter, minimizing tillage to preserve the soil structure, and using cover crops strategically, that sort of thing.
Right, you're essentially cultivating the soil itself to be the vine's water reservoir.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
You're building a resilient soil ecosystem. You also have to think about spacing. Vines are typically planted wider apart than in irrigated vineyards.
Wider, to give them more soil access, is that it?
Exactly. Wider spacing means each vine has a larger volume of soil to draw water from, reducing competition. And finally, rigorous yield control is essential. Dry farming is about quality over quantity, because the vine simply can't support a massive crop on limited water. You prune aggressively to ensure the vine's resources are concentrated in a smaller number of bunches.
That makes intuitive sense. Now, your sources mention a term, viticulture. Is that just another name for dry farming?
They are very closely related, and often the term sequeiro, particularly used in places like Portugal, refers to this traditional non-irrigated method. The distinction sometimes made is that modern dry farming is a conscious, total commitment to zero irrigation,
Right.
whereas historical sequeiro might have, in some isolated cases, included maybe some emergency water use. But for most practical purposes today, especially when talking about intentional non-irrigation, they're pretty much used interchangeably.
Got it. A nuance, but essentially the same philosophy. Is there like a formal certification or a globally recognized stamp that says this is dry farmed?
No, there isn't a single international certification. In many traditional European regions, it's simply the historical practice, part of the regional identity. It's just how they farm,
It's just assumed.
pretty much. In places in the New World where irrigation is common, producers who dry farm often highlight it on their labels or in marketing as a point of difference in quality.
Oh, okay.
Some specific regions, like parts of Oregon, might have regulations or incentives that pertain to non-irrigated vineyards, but no universal standard exists.
Okay, so it's more of a practice rooted in history and increasingly a deliberate choice for quality and sustainability. Which brings us to that history you mentioned. How far back are we talking?
We're talking ancient history,
Yeah.
seriously. Dry farming is fundamental to the very origins of viticulture, dating back thousands of years
Wow.
to the birth of winemaking in the Mediterranean and Middle East. The Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, they were all dry farmers out of necessity.
Right, no choice back then.
Exactly. Before modern technology, there was simply no way to irrigate vineyards on a large scale.
So it was the default setting for centuries.
Precisely. And you see that legacy in traditional European regions. Spain has vast areas, historically dry-farmed Rioja, Priorat, Valencia. Italy, in places like Tuscany, Sicily, Puglia. Southern France, the Rhone, Provence.
All the classics.
And of course, Portugal, in regions like Alentejo and the Douro. These are all places where wine growing evolved with this practice.
And then came the 20th century, and irrigation changed everything, I guess.
It did, especially the widespread adoption of drip irrigation. This technology was revolutionary, no doubt. It allowed vines to be planted in much drier climates, significantly boosting yields and allowing wine production to expand globally.
More wine for more people, which sounds like a win. But you hinted at a potential downside earlier.
Sometimes, yes. While increasing volume, relying heavily on irrigation could sometimes lead to grapes becoming larger, maybe a bit diluted in flavor, less concentration compared to their dry-farmed counterparts.
Yeah, okay.
You lose some of that intensity.
And I guess that brings us to the modern resurgence. Why are people consciously going back to this ancient, seemingly harder way of farming now?
It's being driven by several powerful forces. One is the very real and growing issue of water scarcity globally. That's a huge one.
Yeah, unavoidable now.
Another is a heightened focus on sustainability and reducing the environmental footprint of agriculture. And crucially, there's a strong desire from both producers and consumers for wines that are authentic, that genuinely express their place.
Terroir.
Exactly. Dry farming speaks directly to all of these concerns.
Okay, let's really dig into that why. If it's harder, what are the compelling benefits that make growers choose this path today?
Well, the most immediate benefit, especially in our changing climate, is water conservation. Eliminating artificial irrigation drastically reduces water consumption, which is just critical in water-stressed regions. It's a fundamental way to lower the water footprint of wine production.
That feels increasingly important from an environmental standpoint, doesn't it? What about the wine itself? You mentioned authenticity.
This is where it gets really interesting. Dry farming is arguably the purest path to expressing terroir. Because the vines aren't getting easy water on the surface.
Right.
They're forced to grow incredibly deep root systems searching for moisture.
They're like sending roots meters down for real.
Exactly. Sometimes 10, 20, even 30 meters down, reaching deep into the subsoil layers.
Wow.
This allows them to access a wider range of minerals and nutrients that vines with superficial, irrigation-fed roots simply don't reach. That unique cocktail of minerals from the deep soil layers, combined with the local climate, gets expressed directly in the grape and thus in the wine.
So it's not just a buzzword. Those deep roots physically connect the vine to the unique geology of its place. It's literal.
Precisely. You're bottling the story of that specific plot of land. And this deep root system and the controlled water stress have a profound effect on grape quality.
How so? Does less water mean less flavor? Or?
Counterintuitively, it means more concentrated flavor. The slower, more gradual ripening process under controlled water restriction leads to a higher concentration of sugars, acids, aromas, and those crucial phenolic compounds, the tannins, the color compounds.
Building blocks of a complex wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The resulting wines tend to have greater aromatic intensity, deeper, more complex flavor profiles, more defined structure, and often a really vibrant acidity that comes from that slow, balanced maturation. Compared to many irrigated wines, they often show more character and intensity.
Okay, so better for the planet, a direct line to the essence of place, and potentially higher quality in the bottle. Any other major upsides?
The vine resilience we touched on earlier is a huge one. Those deep, extensive root systems make the vines far more resistant to periods of drought and better equipped to handle climatic variations. In a world with more unpredictable weather, that inherent toughness is vital for ensuring consistent harvests over the long term.
They're like the veterans of the vineyard, hardened by experience.
They are. They really are. And finally, while the setup or transition might take time and investment, dry farming can offer long-term cost savings by eliminating ongoing energy and maintenance costs associated with irrigation systems.
Good point.
Plus, healthier, more resilient vines might require fewer interventions, fewer treatments over time, contributing to financial sustainability as well.
Okay, so those benefits sound pretty compelling, but you've also hinted that this isn't easy. Why isn't everyone doing it? What are the main challenges and how do growers tackle them?
It is definitely a high-wire act.
Fair.
The primary challenge is that you are entirely dependent on natural rainfall. This means significant yearly variation is common, both in the volume of grapes you harvest and sometimes in the quality, depending on the weather patterns of that specific year.
So a truly dry year could be devastating, like wipe out the crop.
Exactly. In extreme drought years, you risk very low yields, grapes that might struggle to mature properly, or, in the worst cases, even vine death. It requires an incredibly deep understanding of your land and meticulous management throughout the season. Constant attention.
It sounds like a much more intense relationship with nature, much less control. So, what are the practical strategies, the secrets maybe, that allow winemakers to succeed with dry farming despite these risks?
It starts, as we mentioned, with grape variety selection. You have to pick varieties that are naturally suited to less water.
Right.
Your sources listed some great examples: Grenache, Zinfandel, Monastrell, Carignan, Bobel, Aglianico, Chenin Blanc, uh, Sinistri, Pays, Malbec, Bernarda, Shiraz, Certico.
A lot of Mediterranean grapes in there.
Many are. These often have inherent traits like naturally deep root growth, or they complete their ripening cycle earlier, requiring less water late in the season.
So it's about picking the right soldier for the conditions.
Exactly. Then, soil management is absolutely paramount, building that sponge we talked about.
Yeah.
This involves techniques like adding plenty of organic matter through compost or green manure, which dramatically improves the soil's ability to hold water. Minimizing tillage helps maintain soil structure and encourages a healthy microbial life that aids water infiltration. And strategically choosing cover crops between rows.
Cover crops.
Yeah, ones that don't compete too much for water, but help prevent erosion and keep the soil cool. It's all part of the system.
So you're actively nurturing the soil's water holding capacity, trying to maximize every drop.
Precisely. It's about making the most of every drop that falls. Spacing, as we discussed, is wider to give roots room to explore. In canopy management, carefully pruning and managing the leaf area is vital for controlling transpiration.
Transpiration. Oh, the vine loses through its leaves.
Exactly. You want enough leaves to ripen the fruit, but not so many that the vine just bleeds water unnecessarily.
You're helping the vine be as efficient as possible with its water use.
It's all about efficiency and resilience. And you need to constantly monitor the weather and the vines themselves. It's a dialogue with the vineyard, really.
What if someone has an existing vineyard they've been irrigating for years? Can they just flip a switch and go dry? Seems unlikely.
Oh, definitely not. That would likely be fatal for the vines.
Okay.
Vines used to irrigation develop superficial root systems because the water is always readily available near the surface. Transitioning to dry farming is a slow, gradual process, often taking several years.
How do they do it then?
You have to slowly reduce irrigation over time, maybe season by season, to sort of force those roots to search deeper and develop the necessary structure.
So it's less a switch and more of a patient, long-term training program for the vine, like weaning it off.
Exactly. It requires commitment and careful monitoring to avoid stressing the vines to the point of no return.
It sounds incredibly challenging, but clearly rewarding for those who master it. Let's travel the world a bit. Where are some key places where dry farming is still practiced today, or where it's making a notable comeback?
Well, the Mediterranean is the heartland, where it never really left. In Spain, you see it across regions like Rioja, Priorat, Ribera del Duero, with varieties like Tempranillo, Garnacha, Monastrell, Bobal. Italy has strong traditions in places like Tuscany, Sicily, Puglia, with Sangiovese, Nero d'Avola, Primitivo.
Ah, yes, Primitivo and Zinfandel, related grapes often found in these drier farmed regions. Good point.
Exactly. Greece, particularly Santorini, is a unique case study. They grow Certico in these amazing low basket shapes.
The Kuzora.
That's them, on volcanic soil, protecting them from intense winds and sun, maximizing what little moisture is available. It's ingenious. Portugal's Alentejo and Douro regions also have a deep history of dry farming, with local varieties like Trincadeira and Triga Nacional.
It's so ingrained in their heritage there. How about the New World? Is it different there?
In North America, it's often a more conscious, strategic choice, I'd say. In California, places like Mendocino, parts of the Sonoma coast, and Lodi, particularly with Old Vine Zinfandel, Carignan, and Petite Sirah, have producers dedicated to dry farming. There's even the Dry Farming Alliance in California helping spread knowledge.
Interesting.
Oregon, with its naturally rainier climate, is often well-suited, especially for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and many embrace minimal intervention, which aligns well with dry farming principles.
Right.
Washington State has pockets where it's viable, too. Here, highlighting dry farmed on the label is often a key differentiator for quality and philosophy.
A deliberate statement in a landscape where irrigation is maybe more prevalent. And South America.
South America has significant examples, especially in historical, sometimes drier regions. Chile, and places like Maule and Itata, has incredibly old Pays vines whose deep roots are perfectly adapted to semi-arid conditions. Really fascinating stuff.
Wow, old vines.
And in Argentina, vineyards near the Andes, particularly with old vine Malbec and Bonarda, often rely on deep roots, accessing water from snowmelt filtration deep underground.
Tapping into those ancient water sources. And Australia. I know they have some famous old vines, too.
Australia has a very strong culture of dry farming, particularly in iconic regions like the Barossa Valley and McLaren Vale. They boast incredible old vine Shiraz and Grenache vineyards with legendary deep root systems accessing water stores from deep in the ground. It's really part of the identity of those regions.
So from ancient cradles to newer regions embracing it strategically, dry farming is truly a global phenomenon adapted to local conditions. Now, once you've got these intense, concentrated, dry-farmed grapes, what happens in the cellar? How does an entomologist approach winemaking with this unique raw material?
That's a great question. The entomologist's role with dry farm grapes is really about interpretation, not manipulation. These grapes are already incredibly concentrated. They have intense flavors, vibrant acidity, often firm tannins. The winemaker's job is to understand that character and guide it into the bottle without masking it. It's a philosophy of minimum intervention, really, to allow that authentic expression to shine.
So less about imposing a style, more about facilitating what the vineyard gave you, letting the fruit speak.
Exactly. Precisely. Vitification decisions become very strategic. For example, managing maceration, how long the skins stay with the juice, is crucial to extract those ripe tannins and color without pulling out harshness. You need balance.
Delicate touch needed.
Very much so. Fermentation needs careful control to preserve the fresh aromas and acidity.
And oak use. Does that change, more or less?
Oak is used judiciously. It might be there to help soften tannins or add subtle complexity, maybe add some texture, but the goal is never for the oak flavor to dominate the wine's unique character. It should support, not overshadow, the fruit, and terroir are the stars.
It sounds like the raw material, because of that water stress, fundamentally changes how you need to approach the winemaking. It demands a different touch.
It does. The must, the initial grape juice, has higher concentrations of everything, sugars, acids, phenolics. The resulting wines are typically powerful, deep, with significant structure, those firm tannins we mentioned, that characteristic vibrant acidity, and that intense, genuine flavor derived directly from the terroir.
Are there specific techniques that tend to pair well with these grapes? Anything winemakers often reach for?
Techniques that respect the fruit and encourage texture without over-extraction are often favored. Fermentation in, say, concrete vessels or clay amphorae, for instance, provides gentle micro-oxygenation without imparting wood flavor.
Right.
Using indigenous yeast from the vineyard itself can also add another layer of complexity and authenticity, tying the wine even more closely to its place.
And given that structure and concentration, do these wines tend to age well? Can you cellar them?
Absolutely. Their inherent concentration, structure, and vibrant acidity give them excellent aging potential. They often have the backbone to develop beautiful complexity and elegance over many years, sometimes decades.
It sounds like dry farming produces grapes that are both a challenge and a profound gift to the skilled winemaker. So we've journeyed from the ancient definition to the modern cellar. Looking ahead, what's the future of dry farming in the wine world? Is it niche or mainstream?
I think it's not just promising, it's becoming increasingly fundamental, perhaps even essential, especially as we face growing water scarcity and the unpredictable impacts of climate change globally.
It feels less like a niche choice and more like a necessary adaptation, maybe.
That's the shift happening, I think. Growing awareness of these global pressures is driving its adoption even in regions where it wasn't historically the norm. It plays a critical role in sustainable viticulture, drastically cutting water use, promoting healthier soil structure through deep roots, avoiding issues like salinization from irrigation,
Good point. Yeah.
and fostering a more balanced vineyard ecosystem. It often aligns perfectly with organic or biodynamic principles too.
So a key piece of the sustainability puzzle for vineyards, is there research happening to improve it further, making it easier maybe?
Definitely. Innovation is key. There's ongoing research into optimizing soil management techniques for different climates, developing new drought-resistant rootstocks and grape varieties, and fine-tuning winemaking approaches to best express these concentrated grapes. Science is catching up to the ancient wisdom.
And is the market responding? Are consumers like you and me showing interest in dry-farmed wines?
Absolutely, and this is a major driver. Consumer interest in authentic, sustainable wines with a clear connection to their origin is rising significantly. People want stories, they want connection.
Yeah.
Dry farming is increasingly seen as a mark of quality, a commitment to sustainability, and a pure expression of place. Producers are recognizing this and highlighting it more on labels, which in turn drives demand.
That's a really positive feedback loop, consumer interest encouraging sustainable practices.
It truly is. It makes economic sense alongside the environmental and quality benefits. It's a win-win-win, potentially.
This has been a remarkable deep dive. We've seen how dry farming, this ancient practice of relying solely on nature's water, is far more than just a technical method. It's a philosophy, a deep respect for terroir and limited resources, navigating significant challenges to create wines of exceptional authenticity, quality, and resilience.
It really is about fostering the vine's ability to draw strength from the deepest parts of its place and the winemaker's skill in capturing that essence without interference, trusting the vine and the soil.
Right, it's not about controlling nature, it's about working with it, listening to it, to reveal the true character of the vineyard. Which leaves us with this thought, perhaps. Considering the accelerating impacts of climate change and increasing strain on global water resources, could embracing the ancient wisdom of dry farming not just be a choice for quality and authenticity, but perhaps the single most essential strategy for the very future of wine as we know it?